Okay guys, let's do the rest of our problems from this benchmark review, and as Stay Strong Baby says, stay strong, spring break is almost here. So we're going to start with number 22 and go through number 35. As with previous ones, I have written it all out and we'll go through it. I know that a lot of this requires a calculator, so you're going to need to make sure that you recognize how to find what you need to find before you walk in here to take the benchmark test. So that means that you are going to want to probably come and see me if you need to practice with a calculator, or make sure that you ask the questions you need during class. Okay, so we left off with number 21. This one is, what number of solutions? What is the number of solutions for this system of equations that we have graphed right here? System of equations, remember, 2 lines. 1 point, it crosses at 1 point, that means it has 1 solution. Other possibilities would be infinitely many, where the 2 lines would be the same line, 2 equations, same line, and no solutions at all, where they're parallel. So in this case, the only possible answer here is 1. Happens to be 0.3 negative 2, but that's kind of irrelevant because they just asked us how many solutions it has. Okay. What is the solution to this system of equations? So this requires us to, again, recognize what we're talking about when we talk about a system of equations. It's the 2 lines graphed at the same time, and it's asking us where exactly do they cross, and that's 0, 0. These 2 lines cross at 0, 0. Solve the inequality. So we have an inequality. It has a negative coefficient on the x, which makes me remember that I'm going to have to do some symbol flippage. So I'm just using my properties of equality. I subtracted 14 from both sides. Get negative 30 is less than negative 5x. Divide by negative 5. And x is less than 6. Flipping the symbol because I divided by negative 5. That means I'm looking for the answer that matches x is greater than 6. Given the graph of the following system of inequalities, which region should be shaded? And so what I did is I took the equations and I solved them for y. So let's look at what happened when we did that. Well, this one, all we had to do was subtract 2x. So we got y is less than negative 2x minus 2. For this one, I had to subtract 2x and then divide everything by negative 3, meaning that I had to flip my symbol. So looking at that, then I figured out which line was which, and I took and I labeled the one that's red. This one, the dotted line is this one right here, and I did the shading in red for that one. Less than, so it's under the line. I know this is the correct line for this one because it has a y-intercept of negative 2 and a negative slope. I know this one's got to be the correct line for the second one because it has a y-intercept of positive 2 and a positive slope. And so I shaded above because that's greater than, and that means that the double shaded region is this one that's marked with a 4. Well, really, you want to do it this way. That's the most efficient way to do it. You could go through and plug in a number from each of the 4 sections to each inequality. That seems to me like it'd be a little bit more trouble than it's worth, though. Which graph best shows the solution to the system of inequalities above? Again, I needed to take the system of inequalities and solve for y. So being able to solve for y like that means that I now know the y-intercept and the slope, and then I'm shading below for this one. So y-intercept negative 1, positive 2 slope, shading below. And then this one I have a negative slope, positive 2 y-intercept, negative slope, and we're also shading below. And the only one of the 4 that has both of the inequalities shaded below is A. Remember, when you're solving for y, to be very careful about what you choose to do in terms of multiplying and dividing by a negative. Here, I multiplied everything by a negative. I changed the sign on every term and flipped the symbol around. Or I could say I divided everything by negative 1. Okay, moving on, we have 2 box and whisker plots. So they wanted us to do some comparison between the 2 box and whisker plots. First, they asked for us to understand that they tell us there's 15 in each group. And then it asked us a bunch of questions about the range and the median for these different box and whiskers. So I went through, and since I recognized it was all about range and median, I went ahead and found the range and the median for each one. Range, remember, is largest minus smallest, and median is that center number. And I did kind of have to eyeball it on 72. That might be 72, might be 71.5. We don't know. Hard to tell. The range, so then I went through and I compared everything they asked me to compare. The range for the boys is greater than the median for the girls. Well, the range for the boys came out to be 45 when I found it. The median for the girls came out to be 72. when I found it on there, and that is untrue, so A cannot be the correct answer. I did the same thing all the way through, and the only one that was true is the range for the boys is greater than the median for the girls, because 45 is bigger than... Excuse me, I'm sorry. Let's try that again, LeCompte. The range for the boys is greater than the range for the girls. 45 is bigger than 40. C ended up the correct answer. 28. So in number 28, they give me two ordered pairs, and they want me to find the correct line that they pass through. And I want you to remember to look at the points they give you, because lo and behold, they gave us the y-intercept this time. The ordered pair 0, 1 is a y-intercept because it's on the y-axis. So my y-intercept is positive 1. So that means really all I have to do here is find my slope. So I chose to do 1 minus negative 1, and then of course you have to keep it in the same order, 0 minus 6 to find the slope. So 1 minus negative 1 is 2, 0 minus 6 is negative 6, negative 1/3 is my slope, making the only possibilities A and B, and then recognizing that positive 1 has to be the y-intercept. On this problem, I had to compare the standard deviation and the mean absolute deviation. So the standard deviation I did by calculator. Standard deviation, I used my one variable stats. Remember, my standard deviation matches the formula sheet symbol that we are given, which is theta, right here. Mean we have right here. So unfortunately, this one happens to be a problem where the mean is a repeating decimal. It's 37.3 repeating, or 37 and 1/3. And I used the fact that it was 37 and 1/3. So I went through and took every single one of these numbers, all 15 of them, and I subtracted the mean. And only wrote down positive numbers. So I only wrote down the absolute deviations. Mean absolute deviation means find the difference between every value in the mean, only write down positives, and then find the average of that difference, which comes out to 10.4. Then again, like I did with that earlier problem, I compared all the things they're asking me to compare until I found the one that was true. The standard deviation is larger than the mean absolute deviation for this particular data set. Again, more comparison. This is a good time, or these are good problems, especially number 30. It's a good problem to practice finding that mean absolute deviation or standard deviation, because it doesn't take very, very long to do. And if you have a smaller data set like this, it's just a little bit easier. So this one compares median, mode, mean, and standard deviation. So I had to go in and I had to find all of those things. So I found the mean, the standard deviation, and the median for this data set, and then the mode is the duplicate of 7. Same thing for this one, except this time it's 9 for the mode. I found the standard deviation and the mean by calculator. I put them in order to find the median and just found the middle value of the 6 that I was given. And in this case, it happens to be the middle value for each one is the same number twice. So when it's the top one, it's 7, and the bottom one, it's 9. So the median is 7 and 9. And then I went through and I compared. The standard deviations are equal. Well, that happens to be true. That's very unusual, but that happens to be true here. So then I looked at the medians. They are not equal. The modes, they are not equal. And the means, they are not equal. They happen to be the same number. Mean, median, and mode of all. So all 3 is 7 for this first one. And the same thing below. All 3 were 9, but still, the only one that fits the bill is A. Mean absolute deviation. So remember what that mean absolute deviation formula tells me to do, and I'm going to actually write it. It tells me to take every single number starting with the first one, going to the last one, and take the difference of that number and the mean. Only write down an absolute value, and then add them all up and divide by how many you had. So the first thing I needed is the mean, so I took these numbers and I found the mean using my calculator. Then I found the difference between each of them and the mean, and I listed them underneath. Luckily, it's a whole number for the mean, so it's nice, easy, happy whole numbers. Then I took this list and found its mean, its average, and got 4.5. That's all this formula tells me how to do. And remember, you get this formula on your formula sheet. Okay, how many of these points, have a z-score of less than negative 0.1? Well, first of all, I need to know the mean, which I do, 48.1, and the standard deviation, which I do, 11.4. And I need to look at where is the mean. The mean, if I put these numbers in numerical order, the mean is here between 47 and 50. So I'm looking for numbers with a negative z-score. That means that right off the bat, I can say it can't be any of these because they are too high. And then I want to actually find the z-score for the numbers going downward. So I did 47 first and got that was a z-score of negative 0.096, so almost less than what I'm looking for, but not quite. And then I did the 47 second, or the 46, excuse me, second, and I found the z-score for that is negative 0.184. So if I want a z-score that's less than negative 0.1, that means that I want numbers that are 45 and below. So numbers that are 46 and below. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. And so the correct answer was 5. Only a few more questions. Which box and whisker plot correctly displays the information? Well, I like to use my calculator to do this because I don't want to put these in numerical order and find all that data. But if I did, I'd put them in numerical order from least to greatest. The minimum would be the smallest, the maximum would be the largest. Now that doesn't help us answer this question because all of these box and whisker plots have the same extremes. Then the median is 103 for this data set. That does help me eliminate a couple of problems. It helps me eliminate C because that does not have a median, at 103. It has it at 105. Then the quartiles, halfway between the min and the median and the max. Quartiles are 91.5 and 116.3. So I can go in and eliminate this one because that's not the right lower quartile, and this one because that's not the right lower quartile. If I've now eliminated B, C, and D, then I probably have A. So I'll go ahead and double check. 75, 91.5-ish, 103-ish, 116.3-ish, and 130. Yes, indeed, it sure does match. 2 more questions, guys. So this one is a regression question, and you would need a calculator in order to do this. Now, I know that's a bummer, and you don't have the calculator at home, but hopefully you just went ahead and did the problems anyway, like you were told, the best that you could. Recall that in order to do this on your calculator, you're going to go to Stat. You're going to put your, not stall, try that again, LeCompte. Stat. You're going to put your X's in list 1, you're going to put your Y's in list 2. Once you've done that, you're going to make sure you put in the correct numbers, and then you're going to go to Stat. You're going to go over 1 to Calc, and then you're going to choose linear regression, and it's the one you can see. It's number 4. So then you're going to write down your equation. My equation, when I wrote it down, is right here. Oh, excuse me, right here, the top one. And then I plugged in my X value and rounded off my answer. When I got my Y value for a value of X of 40, I got approximately 8. Last one. Okay, so this time we have the same issue. We're going to find the best fit line. Now I did it using, again, my stat calc linear regression. So I put my numbers in, I get my equation, and now again I am using my equation to predict. So I am taking my equation. They want the closest estimate to the total cost of insuring 8 vehicles. We put in the 8 for X, do the math, and we get $5,200. Now, what do you need to study? In my experience with most of us this year, factoring is something we still need a great deal of work on. And the statistics unit, we still need a great deal of work on. Other than that, you can look for IXL skills using the concepts that are on the blueprint, which I will post for you. And you can use that in order to prepare. Now, I would spend some time making sure that you recognize what the vocabulary is on that blueprint. So if you have any questions or you want to find out how you're doing or if you're missing work or what your IXL time is, shoot me an email, and I'll see you guys in class.